If you're a petrol head, this video is not for you. If you're looking for a sub 15 lakh rupees electric SUV, this video is still not for you. And if you're a sleepy head like this fellow, then definitely this video is not for you. But if you're looking for something curvaceous, this one is for you. It's that body style that gets your attention, and Tata Motors has got into this coupe SUV phase for the first time with the Curvv. Now, yes, it's a global trend, but done right, it looks good. However, there is a slight disproportionate element right up the end, because you see these wider elements right here, then moving on to a sloping bit. So yes, this part, especially after the C-pillar, looks a bit disproportionate, but not bad. Now, the other elements that I love on this car is the two lines. These are not outrageous, they are simple, and that's what makes it stand out, because, well, it's simple. Then there are the wheels with the aerodynamic kind of elements on it. 18-inch wheels just fill up the wheel wells really good, and that helps also in the stance of the car. What is also important are the light elements of the car, because these signature elements make it stand out in the crowd, and yes, that looks smashing.
The rear too gets LEDs, and you might feel that the boot space might not be that great. But trust me, there's a lot of it.
500 liters of boot space, that's what the Curvv has to offer. So let us put it to the test. I'll invite my colleague Hussein to get into the car and check out how big the space is. Brilliant. Truly, he can get inside, no problem. Comprehensive test done.
Sadly, I had to pull Hussein out of the boot because there is more to tell about the Curvv.
I don't feel right unless the odds against me. Back against the wall with my strength. Yeah.
So while the Curvv will be available in both petrol and diesel, the electric version is the one that arrives first, and with Tata's EV ambitions for the future. While there are two battery packs on offer, 45 kilowatt hour and 55 kilowatt hour, the one we are driving is the larger one.
And this time around, it's making some noise. Not figuratively, literally.
It's a sound like the lightsaber from Star Wars. It sounds like that, doesn't it? But it's not a gimmick, it's a safety feature. Tata calls it the Acoustic Vehicle Alert System. It's nothing new because we've seen this on the e-trons from Audi. It's just to make people aware that there's a car around. In fact, the sound cuts off once you cross the 20 km/h mark.
With 165 brake horsepower on offer, the Curvv delivers what Tata intended to. And you know what? It moves away from all that we know about EVs from Tata Motors. With the Nexon EV, when the car first came, there was a burst of energy up front, a lull, and then there was nothing. The second time, and during the facelift, Tata Motors did a bit of minor correction and said, all right, no, you won't get that burst of power at the beginning, but it will sustain. It will sustain for longer range. With this, it gets a little complicated. The technology, that is, because you have that burst of energy. Just point to be noted. Look at this. You do have that burst of energy, and the sustenance of that burst of energy is longer, which is why it can do 0 to 100 km/h in just 8.6 seconds. To add to that, there are the driving modes. You have the Eco, you have City, and you have Sport. And you know what? Every time you put it into sport mode, there is that clear sense of rush. And that just not in the car but in your head as well. It's a rush of adrenaline on both fronts.
The battery chemistry is the same, but the prismatic cells in the battery pack are new, and that helps in faster charging time. It can charge from 10 to 80% in 40 minutes using a 70 kilowatt or higher charger, and that's great. In fact, during our drive, we drove over 110 kilometers through different terrains, mountains, and highways. But the drop in charge was about 40%, which, going by Tata's history, is not much. The real world range that Tata expects the car to provide is around 400 to 425 kilometers on a single charge, though the ARAI figure stands at 585.
I just want to touch upon the regeneration bit, the battery recuperation. So it has 3 levels. You have the flappy paddles basically to go through all those levels, and level 3 basically is like one pedal driving. You don't need anything else. It's really well done, and the recuperation too keeps on happening. I think that's again the evolution that I was talking about from Tata Motors, and it works well.
The steering design is new, and I got to know it a little better throughout the drive.
Now, I had my doubts about how the Curvv EV will behave, and that steering to me I thought would be completely dead because it would be electric, and I didn't have any hopes. But Tata has proved me wrong. There is a lag when it comes to the steering response. It's not much, it's very minuscule, and but still, I mean, it's very much there. However, the steering weighs in well, and because of the shape of the steering, you kind of, it's easy to maneuver around. That's what it is. Even on a small and a narrow road like this, I can easily maneuver myself, across this crowded road. So it's good in that way. Overall, then, it does make a lot of difference to the way you start viewing Tata Motors' car, and the Curvv naturally brings a lot to the table when it comes to that. Simply put, with a ground clearance of 190 millimeters, this one it's not bad on the right front, because you take on potholes, you take on any of these broken roads. I mean, this pothole right here, there you go, you see the kind of response the suspension has. It is pretty good. Yes, there is a slight kickback for those sitting at the rear, and the ride becomes a bit bumpy as well, but it's not all bad. Even a bad pothole like this, it takes it in its stride, and that's the beauty of the Curvv. You can throw any road surfaces its way, and it will come out a winner.
Now, the springs are a bit tightly wound, and that's why there's a slight kickback for the rear passengers. But that's not the only thing that will make people in the back seat uncomfortable.
Now, this one gets a wheelbase of 2560 millimeters, so it falls short of some of the compact SUVs on offer by quite a lot. But if you put it in conjunction with, say, the Nexon, then the wheelbase is just 50 millimeters more. That does not translate into much space, frankly, because this seat has been adjusted according to my preference, and the room that I get here, especially the knee room, is not that big. There's under thigh support lacking as well, so that's not great. And in fact, if I put my head up straight, someone as tall as me or taller than me is going to have a problem here because of the headroom on offer. Now, if the car goes over a speed bump because of the driver's mistake, then my head is going to bang into that roof. That's a bit of a problem. Up front, there's a lot to like because you get a new steering wheel. It looks very similar to the one on the Nexon EV and the Nexon, but this one has 4 spokes. So great to handle and very nice, comes in very handy. Again, the flat bit remains, but there is a bit of old and there is a bit of new. So the old bit are these 12.3-inch touchscreen infotainment system, arcade.ev. That's what it gets. So yes, similar in terms of features that you saw earlier in the next one. A few more apps added, a few more engagement related stuff added. So yes, there are additions here as well. And then there is the 10.25-inch digital instrument cluster, which is again great in terms of the number of things on it. It's easily visible and the colors just absolutely pop out. Having said all of that, you see here the usage of buttons is very less. It's minimum. Everything is more or less touch based. The only 2 buttons here are the AC fan and the temperature monitor. So yes, Tata is going out all when it comes to digitally equipping its cars. But the space inside here remains all right. There's good enough shoulder room, very big glass area as well. So things here are much more spacious than the rear.
In contrast, the front is very well appointed. On the features front, V2L technology and V2 VTech are standard on the car. And that's saying something. With the Curvv EV, Tata has taken its usual stance when it comes to safety. It's loaded with it. 6 airbags, ESP, and a lot more are standard. In fact, the company says it's most likely to get a 5-star safety rating. This top-end variant that I was driving came with level 2 ADAS, which works well, as you can see here. But this feature is restricted to the top-end Empowered Plus variant only. Now when it comes to price, the Curvv EV begins from 17,50,000 rupees going all the way up to 22 lakh rupees. Yes, there is a slight overlap with the Nexon EV, which is priced between 14,49,000 rupees to 19,49,000 rupees. Its closest rivals, the MG ZS EV, costs a bit more on the top end variant. But the top end of the Mahindra XUV 400 is just 20,000 rupees dearer than the base variant of the Curvv. Having said that, the Curvv is far ahead in terms of feature offerings. But it does not set benchmarks on all fronts. Tata's learning curve, pardon the pun, is massive on this one. And yes, it will boost its EV sales because it will get attention. It's a product that's ahead of the curve.